Is turn this on so I can. Thanks. Good morning. Quick question, just because we do have standing room only, and we have a couple of items on the agenda that could have brought you here. How many people are here for the drinking water item? All right, that's a few, but it's not a giant number. We do have an overflow room next door. Janine, how does it work? It's a screen, so they...
The meeting will be on the screen. So it's just like in Sierra room.
Sierra room right next door.
You want to walk out that door, it's right there.
All right, so it's right out that door, and there, if you'd like to sit, the fire marshal tends to prefer that, and then you can check and see and come back in here as people leave this room, and some will be leaving after the drinking water item. Just want people to be comfortable. All right. I'm ready to start? Okay, great. All right, good morning. Today is Tuesday, July 1st at 9:04 a.m. and the meeting is called to order. I'm Felicia Marcus, the chair of the Water Board. To my left is Vice Chair Fran Spivey-Weber. To her left, Board Member Didi Diadamo. To my right, Board Member Tam Dodak. And to her right, Board Member Stephen Moore. Mr. Howard, will you introduce the staff that's assisting today?
Thank you, Chair Marcus. To my left, Chief Counsel Michael Laufer. To my right, Chief Deputy Karen Turgovich. John Bishop is at a fracking meeting and may be joining us later. Assisting the board today are Janine Townsend and Courtney Davis.
Thank you very much. Emergency procedures for those of you who have not been here with us. Thank you. If you hear an emergency sound, you will know it. Please proceed to the nearest exit with all your stuff. We gather in Cesar Chavez Park until the all clear if you want to know when it's okay to come back. Also, because we're being webcast, it's challenging but important to try and talk right into the microphone. You can see the difference. This is one of those things that my colleagues help me do. It's not a natural thing for most people, so try and be closer to this than you might think. And please turn off your cell phones or set them on silent.
Actually, the reason why that comes about is even when calls come in and the cell phone is on silent, it's still ringing. That's why.
So it's better to probably turn it off unless you, all right. I'm demonstrating turning it off behavior. Terrific. Okay. With that done, we're on to the public forum, and the board will hear from any person wishing to speak about a matter that is not pending before the board.
I have no cards.
No cards. All right. Next, I'll consider the minutes from the June 17th board meeting. Do I have a motion?
I move approval.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I need to abstain because I was not here when the voting matters came up.
Okay. Thank you. All right. With that correction, the minutes are approved. Next, we move on to board member reports. I'd ask, given that we have such a hefty agenda and so many visitors today, to keep it shorter than usual. I think it's a very valuable thing to do, but I think we best get on to the business as soon as we can. So any highlights? I'll start with you, Steve, today.
Sure. Quickly, in my liaison meeting with North Coast Regional Board on June 19th, they adopted the on-site waste treatment system policy within their basin plan. And then I wanted to also note that on June 26th, I was a speaker at the Southern California Water Committee's conference on stormwater. It was their third annual stormwater meeting. And it was a useful dialogue because it not only included the three regional boards, San Diego, Santa Ana, and Los Angeles, their staff from the regional boards working on the stormwater implementation program, but also the folks that are implementing it on the ground. And so it was a good dialogue, and it was useful to hear the three programs kind of together on a panel, and EPA was there as well. So that was a step forward in terms of coordination, I thought. And I was able to introduce the Stormwater Strategic Initiative that our staff are working on. Thanks.
Great. All right.
Just a few comments. One, there's been a lot of activity in San Diego from the regional board in San Diego to respond to the drought, and they announced that there was a 50% increase in recycled water production for Camp Pendleton, that they're using an existing MS4 to cover algal growth in a stream, and are including it in the MS4 so they don't have to do an additional permit. And they re-announced or announced some regs that would allow, that were particularly conditional regs that were particularly to allow people to use recycled water or gray water in ways that they could have always done but might not remember that they could. So this was an underscoring of that. And in the Colorado River, I think for my colleagues, the Yucca Valley High Desert Water District is going to start the creation of an assessment district going septic to sewer, hoping to go septic to sewer, on August the 14th. So the countdown starts at that point. And I was a speaker at three different venues on all different kinds of things, and so it was a busy 2 weeks.
Okay, so just want to really thank Chair Marcus for taking the trip down into the valley. We spent a couple of days, the 23rd and 24th, first at Cal State Fresno, visiting with the California Water Institute, and they have a Center for Irrigation Technology. So we were looking at all kinds of improvements and projects for irrigation technology on farm. Met with, then we traveled south and met with the center, gosh, what happened to me? We met with Cal State University Bakersfield, basically an energy institute, and this is a new institute, and it was an exciting opportunity to talk with the folks that are pulling this together, their early discussions. And so I think we had a good dialogue about the importance of stakeholder collaboration. We met with the Community Water Center in Visalia, and also a self-help enterprise about drinking water issues. And I'll leave it at that. Yesterday, I met with the San Luis Delta Mendota Water Authority, had a good dialogue about groundwater issues and upcoming legislation. And then on the 20th, I attended a partnership meeting for the San Joaquin Valley and invited OEHA to present the Cal Enviro Screen. So we had a good dialogue regarding the issues that we've been talking about on indicators for drinking water issues.
Terrific. And thanks for that report. That saves me and the time. And I did a lot of speaking engagements, and I've been spending a lot of time on urban water conservation issues as we look towards potential emergency regulations on urban water conservation to help during the drought. So with that, let's move to item 3. No, but I'm not it is on, but I'm demonstrating bad behavior at the microphone. Thank you. I told you it was hard. Mr. Howard, I know I have something to say, but also, do you want to introduce first the item number 3, which we're pretty excited about?
Yes, item number 3 is actually quite a landmark day for the Water Board. We have now, our functions now include the drinking water program, and I believe that with the combination of the water quality and the drinking water program, the source water quality, it'll be a much stronger combined organization. It's a very exciting time, and I was very fortunate that I was able to hire over the last week or so Cindy Forbes, who has, as I recall, 30 years of experience in the drinking water program, and she'll be moving up to the 24th floor, sitting with the board members. And I believe with that, you had some comments to make, and then Liz Haven probably had a few comments, and of course, we'd like to hear from Cindy as well.
I just want to add my thanks, Cindy, for stepping up to take this job, but also add my welcome to all of the drinking water staff, hopefully, who are listening over the internet today, and just say that we are really looking forward to the new water boards with the combination of experience, approach, relationships, etc., to be able to really rise to the occasion and do some great work together as we deal with the water cycle from source to tap, really better able to help the communities we all serve. I think we're all really excited about the synergies that we're going to be able to find, and really looking forward to getting to know all the folks from the drinking water program, as I hope they're excited to get to know the folks from the traditional water board side of the house. This is definitely one of those things, as Tom said early in the process, where the whole is going to be greater than the sum of the parts.
Thank you. I think we're extremely happy to be here at the board, and I think that the future will allow us to tag team with some of the other divisions here at the board to do a better job and make sure we're doing the right thing. So thank you.
It'd be great. Liz, did you want to talk a bit, please, about the transition?
Yes, good morning. Liz Haven with the State Water Board. And I'm very pleased today to present we'll try to make it brief in view of the number of people in the audience, but an update on the drinking water program transfer. On Friday, June 20th, the governor signed the budget bill and the trailer bill that implemented the budget, effectuating the transfer of the drinking water program as of today. Today, approximately 291 positions, as well as temporary help, has been transferred to the Water Board. This has resulted in a new division of drinking water to be headed up by Cindy Forbes, and 50 additional positions in the Division of Financial Assistance, moving over from the State Revolving Fund at CDPH. The other staff are in support areas such as IT and accounting and other areas. We're very fortunate to have such a talented and dedicated group of staff joining us at the State Water Board. This is budget neutral, except for some one-time IT and moving costs. I did want to start with a couple of acknowledgments. There's been an incredible amount of work that has been behind the scenes to make this transfer as smooth as possible. And I want to especially acknowledge the work of the sub-teams. This is CDPH and Water Board staff who have worked together since September 25th. I remember it well. We all kicked off with a meeting. And I wanted to state that the sub-teams met regularly, many of them meeting every 2 weeks, some meeting every week. And we had a little celebration on Friday afternoon, and the invitation list of that was 91 people. So I just wanted you to know how much effort has gone into this that you don't necessarily see. I also want to thank especially Nicholas Hydorn of Cal EPA. He's been a great help to me over the past year in planning for this. And of course, the leadership of Tom Howard and Gordon Burns in making it all happen. I also wanted to acknowledge to the CDPH staff the great uncertainty that we know you've experienced over the past year and a half since bills were introduced to make this transfer. It's been, I'm sure, a very rough road, and we appreciate your patience, and we heard such great things about you through the stakeholder process. And so the wait is over, and you have a bright future with such a capable leader. So I wanted to report on some of the items that have been completed. As I mentioned, the budget trailer bill, and I can't not mention, this is always dangerous when you start mentioning names, but Ann Hartridge has been invaluable in this, and I know she's sitting behind me, and she's done a fabulous job with the budget trailer bill. The way it was written allows the State Water Board to move the existing statutes and regulations, many of them, into a policy handbook. And at that point, the January 1st after that, they will be removed from statute and regulations, giving the board a lot of flexibility going forward. And Ann was sort of the mastermind of that whole concept and my partner on that as well. Another key point is that SB 861 gave the new deputy director the ability to issue recycled water permits for potable reuse. Recycled water, as we all know, is one of the great promising areas for partnership and moving the state forward. We've already covered the wonderful hiring of our deputy director. I also did want to mention that the Environmental Laboratory Accreditation Program, ELAP, is very important to all of Cal EPA and to the regional boards as well, in that we rely on the laboratories that are certified by the ELAP program. And I'm very proud to say that Christine Sotelo, who many of you know, has accepted that position. So she has the challenge of working on the ELAP program, and we're so grateful that she'll be there to do that. A few things that also have been completed. An emergency response MOU has been signed, and again, Nicholas Hydorn really took the leadership on emergency response. We have had training already conducted for the drinking water duty officers. This is kind of a new area for the State Water Board to have 24/7 emergency response responsibilities. But luckily, CDPH already has a very robust emergency response system in place. And we have been working through making that transfer because there are some differences. We're ensuring continuity of drought reporting, very important to the governor's office. And also, we've worked very closely with US EPA and acknowledged their hard work as well, since primacy needs to be transferred. That notification was sent, and the Attorney General has made it one of several certifications that need to be done. The capitalization grants have been transferred, and so more is yet to be done, but all of the critical items have been completed at this point for transfer of primacy for the program and transfer of this drinking water SRF. Back to the employees, we have a welcome package for employees that was sent to them and will be available on the intranet very soon to the new Water Board employees. Their migration of emails occurred this past weekend. And if you can imagine transferring emails from more than 300 staff, I want to commend Kathy Owen and the rest of the DIT staff for making it really very smooth with a few little hitches, but they managed to fix them right away. And that in itself is amazing. And lastly, in terms of things that have been already completed, there's a time accounting database that basically runs the fee collections, and that's very critical. A dynamic team of accounting staff, IT staff, CDPH staff all worked very hard to develop an actual new database, and that's being beta tested this week, so we're very happy about that. Important to be able to continue to collect funds for the program. I'm going to condense, in view of the time and the number of people waiting to hear about curtailment. We have many things in the pipeline. We'll be talking to you more about that. An important one is the Transition Advisory Group that was promised in the transition plan that we released, that the secretaries released. And that will be one of the jobs of Cindy to start the process for issuing invitations and getting that group started. There are also many other interagency agreements, a couple of other MOUs for fluoridation and public health functions that are remaining at CDPH. We will complete those. And I know there's cross-training that's going to be held with regional board staff and CDPH staff this fall. Looking forward to that. I know the exec team, including Tom, as much as feasible, are really hoping to visit the district offices around the state and do what they can to get to know some of the district office staff. And also, the mission statement is being revised to include public health, and that should be coming to the board in the second board meeting in August. And last but certainly not least is the policy handbook for the state revolving fund for the drinking water side. Will mimic what we do with the Clean Water SRF, and once that's in place, we will be able to have much more flexibility, and yet we will have a very open process for letting everyone know what requirements will pertain to the drinking water SRF. And that will be coming to you in the fall. I believe it's scheduled for either September or October. And just a few not minor, but just a few wrap-up comments about the fact that we know that there's a number of regulations that are in the pipeline when Cindy has hired the program management branch chief, which is a key vacancy and will act somewhat similar to the Division of Water Quality in terms of being the statewide functions of the drinking water program, whereas the field offices will maintain their very important responsibilities, much as the regional boards regulate sites. So the program management branch chief position will be filled and will have responsibility to finish a number of regulation packages as well as other responsibilities. And I'll just wrap up by saying that we will be providing future updates to you by means of both the executive director report and information items like these. So I thank you all for your support of this transfer and how you have each personally worked on this. I very much appreciate it, and it's a great day, I think, for the Water Board, and thank you again.
Right, and thank you, Liz, for your tireless efforts and being willing to step out of your position to do this full time. It really, I think you've made all the difference at not only a professional scale and an intellectual scale, but at a human scale. Whether it's helping lead the Drinking Water Task Force, where we work through issues with all the stakeholders and legislators, or working with the staff at a seamless level to figure out how to make us one family and one more effective team. It's been amazing and inspiring to watch.
Well, thank you. It's been my privilege.
And we do. We have one card. Omar Carrillo from the Community Water Center. Good morning, Mr. Carrillo. I like your note on the bottom.
Hello? Hello? All right, awesome. Couldn't pass up this opportunity to thank everybody who worked on this transition. First and foremost, I'll make it real brief. This effort began in the legislature based on a lot of different things that were going on, and the commitment was made over the last year to really move forward with an effort that began to address the impacts of not having drinking water and for communities throughout the state. But further, I mean, ultimately, there was a lot of leadership shown, and it was really difficult to get to this point. So thank you, Liz. Cindy, congratulations. She's been a great ally in the Central Valley, so great choice. And moving forward with this program is going to take, and making it effective and successful is going to take all of our kind of diligence and having public comments, having communities participate, and Community Water Center, Clean Water Action, CRLA Foundation, Incorporated, Leadership Council, a lot of different organizations, also AGUA, which is a group of communities, are committed to the success of this program, and moving forward we'll be at the table, and we thank you very much, State Water Board, for your leadership and all those that have worked on this, because this is really truly something that was necessary, and we're very much looking forward to working with all of you to make it incredibly successful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A note to all, again, some people have joined us. We will take, especially since we have so many folks, but also because it's so important to be thoughtful and able to listen and think about and digest what people have said, we will be taking some kind of a mid-morning quick break just for folks to be able to walk around, look outside, get some coffee, whatever it is you need to do during a short break. We will take a lunch break. May not be a full hour, but we definitely will take a lunch break. Just keep our blood sugar going, etc., and our brains working, and to give people again a chance to see the sun and move a little bit. And then we'll probably take an afternoon break of some sort. Again, to remind you, there is an overflow room. If you go through this door or back around that door, you will see on the screen everything that is happening in this room. If we have speaker cards. I'll give it a moment for someone to get over here. If they don't know, what I'll probably do is let people know who's on deck, so you have a sense of, so you'll know 1 or 2 ahead of when it would be time to speak. With that, Mr. Howard, let's move to item number 4. Mike.
Item number 4 is the update we have every meeting on the drought and existing activities that we're working on, and Brian Coates will be presenting today.
My name is Brian Coates. I'm a senior engineer in the enforcement unit in the Division of Water Rights. Okay. Last week on June 24th, the State Water Board issued a notice of suspension of Order WR 2014-22, which rescinded all minimum base flow requirements on Deer Creek due to hydrologic and fishery conditions. The suspension of Order WR 2014-22 does not impact the outstanding post-14 curtailment notices for the Sacramento River watershed, which remain in effect until further notice. We are currently monitoring conditions in the Salinas watershed, as well as the Eel River watershed, which includes the North Fork, main stem, and middle fork of the Eel River, as well as the Van Dusen River. Please visit our website for any future updates. And lastly, division staff have begun inspecting projects for compliance to the curtailment notices issued to the Scott, Sacramento, and San Joaquin River watersheds. That's it.
Thank you for being so brief in light of how many folks are here for the next item. We do have a speaker on item number 4, Pam Tobin, Director of the San Juan Water District. Nice to see you again.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll try to make this brief because I know there's a lot of people here. As you know, across the state, reservoirs have been impacted. I mean, everybody's impacted. So I wanted to talk about Folsom because we're the first responder for selenium abatement, if you will. Some of the talking points that I have today are probably redundant of last time, so I will make them brief. You know, we're concerned that Folsom Reservoir is overused in the state's water system. More than 500,000 people rely on the surface water supplies from Folsom Reservoir, and every year that reservoir gets lower and lower and lower. Earlier this year, we came very close to a water supply crisis because the rainfall didn't come. And we can't let that happen again. That is just not feasible for us. The State Water Resource Control Board and the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation need to keep water in the Folsom Reservoir. We can't plan on this winter refilling Folsom Reservoir. The two agencies, we would hope, would work together to prepare for drought and dry year conditions. The agencies must also communicate with water providers diverting directly out of Folsom Reservoir, including the San Juan Water District. We all need to work together during these extreme drought conditions. The Sacramento region is working hard to conserve precious surface water supplies should this winter be dry. San Juan Water District retail has conserved almost 30% of precious surface water, but we're hoping that this doesn't result in those efforts unnecessarily going downstream. The entire state's water system relies on the Folsom Reservoir, and it needs to be operated and handled for future drought conditions. That's basically the synopsis, and I appreciate you taking our comments and being sensitive to the plight of Folsom Reservoir. Like I said, we serve over 500,000 people, and for us, it's a sole source of water. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have checked back in with the Bureau after you and one of your directors' comments, and we're going to stay on it. But I think your suggestion that we do a joint meeting is a good one, so I'm going to suggest that we do that with you and the other Sacramento regional water agencies, just so that we're really clear.
Yeah, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have several people that have come, and I know it's standing room only, so it's hard to make the distinction who's who, but there are people here from our community that are in support, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, just want to make sure I have my follow-up notes already.
Yes, we'll be sure to follow up on the meeting. We'll be sure to follow up with the meeting, and we'll
Yeah, and
invite
then
the Bureau.
maybe a couple of us will go as well. That would be good. Because we have to keep a tight watch on that. Okay, item number 5. Mr. Howard, would you like to introduce it, or Mr. Loffer?
Well, Mr. Howard will do the introduction, but I just want to emphasize a point. If you could once again, I apologize that folks may have to go to the auxiliary room, but we cannot have standing room only in here, and otherwise the fire marshal will come in. So,
It's standing room over there too?
okay.
Uh-oh.
Then perhaps we can work with the building folks to get equipment set up out in the hallway. I know that the Air Board has been able to do that. I'm not sure if
All right,
we can
let's
on
do
short
that.
notice, but
There's a couple of seats. Why don't you wave your hand if there's a
Yeah,
seat
there are a
near
couple
you?
seats towards the front.
There are 4 right in front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4.
We have 3 right here in the front. Or 4, actually. Oh, 3.
If I might make a further pitch, it's nice and cool in the Sierra Room, too. I was there.
It's cooler in the Sierra room,
Yeah.
but if that's full too, that doesn't help.
There's still 2. There's still 1 there.
There actually is plenty of room over in the Sierra hearing room.
Yeah.
Plenty of seats. So people that are scanning have to go over into that room, please.
Okay, that's looking better. All right.
All right. Item 5 is consideration of a proposed resolution regarding drought-related emergency regulations for curtailment of diversions to protect senior water rights. We have David Rose, Les Grober, and Diane Riddle presenting.
Good morning. I'm Les Grober. I'm the Assistant Deputy Director for Water Rights, and we're going to be making a joint presentation today on, we've got a number of slides, and quite a bit of material that we wanted to cover today to introduce this topic. So here just, sorry.
Before you get started, I may interrupt you at a certain point because I know at least one assembly member is going to come by. So I just don't want you to be surprised because I'll see someone behind you.
We'll
Okay.
accommodate them.
No disrespect intended, but
None.
they have
none
tight
taken.
schedules.
We'll be also trying to pause several times because the material here is kind of deep too. So rather than you having to interject, which please do with questions, we'll also be pausing to check in with you at some times. But this slide, just to help us navigate, just shows what we're going to be covering today when I turn it over to Diane in just a few minutes, just going through the finding of the emergency, some of the things that we've heard before, timeline, what got us here, some of the background, the current processes that we have for curtailment, then going over the proposed regulation. And finally, because there's interest in terms of how do we do, the supply and demand thing, what is part of our normal process, how would we do it under the, any proposed regulations. We've seen some of that at the drought updates that we've done, where we've seen those supply and demand curves. We're going to look at that in a little bit different way today. Then there's also the health and safety exception, which, to make clear, and so it's clear it's understood, it's not currently included in the proposal, though there is already language in place because we've adopted some curtailment regs previously that we could link to. But that's one of the big questions here today, should it be in or out. And the fiscal effects that we're required to do that we'll be going over as well. But really what I wanted to do first here is provide some context for why we're doing this and why we're hearing this and maybe why not to do it. Because a recurring theme here is for any curtailments, or certainly curtailments under a regulation, no one's complaining, or not that many people complaining, which begs the question, well, why are we doing this? And judging from the crowd in the audience, this has gotten a number of people rightfully concerned. We heard at the May workshop, which we'll be discussing a little bit more, that we discussed alternatives specifically for the Delta watershed. And at that time, then, staff was directed to come back, well, rather than the proposals that were offered then, look at something that is statewide and not looking at some of the alternate means of doing things, but using something that's more relies upon our standard process. We also heard that the health and safety exception is not needed. I imagine today we'll hear a little bit more about that back and forth. I expect to hear mostly today a lot of reasons not to do the emergency regs, and certainly not to do them. It's overreaching perhaps, because now we're proposing for all statewide water rights. So it's not just the post-14s, but also the pre-14s and riparians is concerned. How do you do that? So I just want to make clear that in what we're proposing, that we can make adjustments to that, that we can make modifications either in the regulations or in the resolution that adopts them, that it would involve rather just the post-14. So this is, nothing, that's why we're here to hear about it today, is nothing has been decided yet. So we could do something that is perhaps less far-reaching. But mindful of, this is an interesting kind of emergency, because this is all rooted in the drought emergency. And it's a different type of emergency that has been, rather than coming all at once, it's been unfolding. So really the impetus for the proposal here is, what are the tools that we need, and perhaps this is one of them, for this unfolding emergency, so when we get to that point that we say, wow, it would have been good to have this thing or not. So we're looking at it, and what many might see as premature now or overreaching. We have to look ahead to think, well, what is it something that we perhaps could need in the coming weeks, coming months, because we know that the rainy season has stopped, there's not going to be any more, now we have greater certainty, and we know that things are going to continue to get worse in terms of water supply, but how much worse? How much of the depletions, how much is going on in the Delta watershed and also statewide? So ultimately, this proposal is just something to offer up another tool that the Water Board could use in the event that it's needed. But mindful now in proposing it, not to undermine what we're proposing, but we don't want to distract from things that we know that we need to do. We need to be responsive to complaints. We need to be working with stakeholders in the basin in terms of how do we, not just use the command and control, but how do we meet the water supply needs in the basins, statewide. And then finally, one element of it, as you heard a lot about already, is how do we assure we stay on track with, in the Delta, with the drought operations plan? How do we assure that we have, storage, and how do we make sure that we protect the Delta, which is central to the state's water needs? So with that, it's, hopefully that's a balanced kind of upfront proposal for, like, we haven't made the decisions yet. We're going to hear a lot of good comments in all directions. But first, we're now going to go through with the staff proposal, which is proposal for statewide regs for all water rights and without the health and safety exception. So with that, if there are not any initial questions, I'm going to turn it over to Diane.
Good morning. Again, I'm Diane Riddle, the Environmental Program Manager for the Hearings and Special Projects section. I'll provide some overview of the staff proposal and a little bit of background to start off. As you're well aware, California is in the third year of a drought. As a result, staff developed the proposed regulations to respond to that drought to effectively and efficiently administer the state's water rights system in light of significant reductions in water supplies due to the drought. Did you want the first line? No. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. There we go. So the board would need to curtail water diversions in both situations when water is not available for senior water users, including pre-14s and riparian users, and when there is inadequate water for all riparian users and there's a need for a correlative reduction in water use. In addition, the board needs to curtail diversions when previously stored water is being released for downstream purposes. The proposed regulations, we believe, will give us the ability to do that in a more quick, efficient manner than we are able to do under our current regulatory scheme. So I'll provide a little bit more information on that. So the proposed regulations would be adopted pursuant to Water Code Section 1058, which grants the State Water Board the authority to adopt emergency regulations in certain drought years in order to prevent the waste, unreasonable use, unreasonable method of use, or unreasonable method of diversion of water, to promote water recycling or water conservation, and to require curtailments of diversions when water is not available, and also to require reporting. Water Code Section 1058 also provides for increased penalties separate from and in addition to other applicable penalties. Water Code Section 1058.5 provides that any emergency regulations would be in effect for up to 270 days. So they would expire either, we would no longer use them if the drought were to discontinue or after the 270-day period. So now I'll go over the timeline of events that got us to today. So back in 2013, due to the dry conditions, the governor issued the first executive order on the drought, B-2113, which directed the State Water Board and the Department of Water Resources, among other things, to take immediate action to address dry conditions and water delivery limitations. Then on December 17th, the governor convened an interagency drought task force to provide a coordinated assessment of the state's dry conditions and provide recommendations on current and future state actions. Then on January 17th of 2014, the governor issued a drought emergency proclamation. The proclamation directed the state board, among other things, to put water right holders throughout the state on notice that they may be directed to cease or reduce their diversions based on water shortages. At the same time the proclamation was issued, the board issued a notice of surface water shortage and potential for curtailment to water diverters throughout the state. The notice encouraged advanced conservation planning and suggested that water right holders look into the use of alternate supplies such as groundwater, purchased water, and contractual arrangements. On February 18th, 19th, and 26th, the board held a couple of workshops to discuss drought-related issues. Those workshops included options for curtailments to protect senior water right holders. Then on March 1st, the governor signed legislation to assist drought-affected communities and provide funding to better manage local water supplies. The drought relief package also expanded the state board's existing emergency regulatory authorities under Water Code Section 1058 that I went over. Then on April 25th, Governor Brown issued a proclamation of a continued state of emergency related to the drought. The proclamation confirms the provisions of the January 17th proclamation and also addresses additional issues, including suspension of the California Environmental Quality Act for adoption of emergency regulations. Also starting in April, the state board posted information regarding lack of water availability and anticipated water supply shortfalls in several watersheds. Currently, their analyses for the Sacramento-San Joaquin River watershed, the Tulare Lake Basin, the Russian River watershed, and the Eel River watershed are available, and the state board anticipates posting additional information as necessary, and also updating this information as new information is available. In the later half of May, the state board issued curtailment notices to junior diverters in the Scott and Sacramento San Joaquin River watersheds and part of the Russian River watershed. Current projections indicate that additional curtailments may also be needed in portions of the Eel River watershed, the Salinas River, additional portions of the Russian River, tributaries to the Delta, and the Sacramento and the San Joaquin tributaries. Then on May 20th and 21st, the state board held a workshop to receive public comments regarding potential options for curtailments in the Delta that Les referred to, and also adopted emergency regulations for minimum fishery flows on Mill, Deer, and Antelope Creeks. In June, staff began compliance inspections of existing curtailments. And then on June 20th, the board released the proposed emergency regulations and supporting information. So for context, throughout the state, there are approximately there are more than 18,000 post-1914 water rights and almost 16,000 pre-1914 and riparian claims. So it's a significant amount of people and water rights that may be affected by the proposed regulations, and wanted to provide that context for the remainder of the discussion. So the following slide, two slides, provide some information about the existing curtailments that are in place. In the Delta watershed, there are a number of water diverters, 120 or so water diverters that have a permit or license condition already. It's referred to as Term 91, that requires them to cease diversions when the State Water Project and Central Valley Project are releasing stored water to meet Delta water quality requirements. Those notices were sent out on May 13th. Additional notices for other post-1914 water rights in the Delta watershed were then sent out on May 27th, not under Term 91, but under our curtailment notice process. In addition, the Russian River watershed upstream of Dry Creek, we issued curtailment notices to post-1914 diverters with priority dates of February 1954 or later. Lastly, we've sent curtailment notices to certain classes of water diverters in the Scott River watershed, which is an adjudicated watershed. And we sent those out on May 16th. So a little bit of background on the curtailment. The curtailment notices that have been sent out all require some form of response to confirm that the curtailments are taking place, or that water users are using an alternate source of water, or additional information that this is the sole source of their water supply, that the water is used for non-consumptive use, or other information. With Term 91, we've received almost all of the responses, a 99% response rate on those certification forms. For the other diverters, we haven't received as many responses. Those were requested within 7 days. Above, you'll see the response rate for those certification forms of the roughly 9,500 curtailment notices that were issued. We've received almost 3,000 responses, which is about a 30% response rate. However, based on the face value of the water right, that represents about 65% of the water rights that were curtailed. And however, due to the health and safety exceptions and other exceptions that were requested, it only results in about a reduction in water use of 7%.
You understand that? Is that because people have claimed big percentages of health and safety that you're trying to
health and
sort out,
safety,
'cause we haven't
or
done it yet?
other water sources that they have water rights under another form of right, a riparian right or a pre-14 right.
Right.
So
Which
we're
they
doing
entitled to continue to divert under.
right.
Right. Okay. Both. Okay.
So this is the summary of the health and safety forms that we've received as of Friday, a breakdown of the forms we've received from the different watersheds, and the type of exception, health and safety exception that was claimed. Most of the health and safety exceptions were based on domestic or public water supplies. We got one for energy, a number for fire protection as well.
Are the numbers in the Sacramento watershed higher just because more people have responded in the Sacramento watershed?
I'm not sure if that's why. It may be because there are more water users in the Sacramento River watershed because it's the biggest river in the state.
Oh.
So it's, you know, that would maybe why. I'm not sure exactly what the response rate is due to.
What was the deadline that you gave on the health and safety claim forms?
It was 7 days, so June 4th, I believe, 7 days after the notices were issued on May 27th. And then additional curtailment response forms were sent out to a number of, to these diverters that submitted their health and safety exemption requests. So this represents the response rate that we've seen on those as well.
So this includes the follow-up very detailed form where people had to certify that they didn't have alternative water sources or couldn't procure them, or what the amounts were, and that it was limited to 50 and all of that. So when are those due?
This represents what we've seen on those.
But is it the full universe?
I don't believe we had a specific due date. It was
Yeah,
only
I had asked
7
for
days,
one.
but again, it's not a mandatory, but it's requested within 7 days.
But this chart doesn't represent the entire universe, because you have others that, in the original notice, responded health and safety, but didn't respond to the second.
Yes.
So do you have those numbers on, if we were to include?
Well, this is Brian Coates from the Enforcement Unit. Regarding the health and safety claim exemptions, the numbers that we're seeing there are from the first batch of curtailment certification forms. So the last Friday we issued, for all those people that claimed health and safety on the initial form, we sent them an additional form to complete, and that's due within 7 days.
All right. So
So we're still in the
that's
kind
gonna
of
be
period
more
for them to
representative.
submit it, yeah.
Okay.
I want to clarify one thing.
That was very detailed.
That's probably obvious, but just to be clear as to what universe we're in, there is no minimum health and safety exception right now.
Correct.
So it's as part of the forms that people were asked to fill out in response to their curtailment notices, there were check boxes that people checked saying why they wouldn't curtail, but under the legal basis for curtailment, only Section 877 that the board adopted last time of its regs includes a minimum health and safety exception.
Correct. And so our follow-up is to try and assess where the issues are, as well as to educate, not just to inform what we might do here, but so that we can deal with the drinking water program and OES if we have a community that's really running out of health and safety water, as opposed to having to cut off other water.
That's exactly right. We're essentially inviting people to explain what their needs are and why they're going to have difficulty curtailing, and if and when we have the legal basis to provide them relief under a minimum health and safety exemption or some other way, certainly going through OES, like you said, it's helpful for us to know what they need and where they are.
No, right. I thought it was good that you sent out such a specific set of questions, because otherwise you had this huge just check a box, and this way we can actually figure out what the situation is out there in a way that articulates not just the needs and the kinds of numbers we're talking about, but also alternative sources which people should be using if they're curtailed in one
That was the
situation, including getting it from their neighbors under the traditional way of getting it.
Sadly, I heard yesterday there are 2 more towns that have run out of water. So that number is going to start climbing.
So this slide lists the public water systems that requested an exemption for health and safety purposes. On the form, we've noticed a number of potential inaccuracies just related to the number of people that may be affected. For example, Siskiyou County stated that the number of people affected is about 9,600. However, the use is for a campsite with 300 campsites on it. So the use would potentially be about 900 people. So we're going to have to look at these for accuracy as well. Yeah. So the above slide lists the projected additional curtailments that may be needed in the future. For the Delta watershed, between June 15th and now, it's projected that the supply for junior pre-14 water right holders, there may not be water available for those diverters. Also, and that immediately following that time period, more senior pre-1914 water right users and riparian users would not have adequate supply. Next, for the Russian River watershed, we don't have any pending curtailments projected at this time. By June 15th, we're expecting no water will be available under riparian rights upstream of Dry Creek.
Can you, Diane, for people who haven't been with us in the earlier workshops, and I see quite a few people who have been with us in earlier workshops and hearings, but also quite a few who may not have. Can you explain how you do this projection? Or are you going to get to that later in the presentation?
I can, I'll be discussing that in a few minutes when we're talking about supply and demand, but I think it's
Okay.
appropriate now. We've been, and this is information from our website, where we've been posting supply and demand information. And as we've heard, that's a rather, it can be a crude tool because it doesn't take into account a number of things. So I'll mention that now. I'll be mentioning it again later when we talk about supply and demand. But this is information that we've been posting, as Diane said earlier with the timeline. For quite some time now, we've been tracking that supply information, forecasted supply, and also demand based on reported use. So this is simply just disclosing what we have currently on our website and with the status of things. But I'll go into a bit more
You will.
detail on
Good.
that in a few.
Excellent.
Now I'll briefly go over the difference between the current curtailment process and the proposed process under the emergency regulation. David will also, at the end of this presentation, compare and contrast the two options from a more legal perspective. So diversions of water, when it's unavailable under a diverter's priority of right, constitutes an unauthorized diversion and a trespass against the state. Absent adoption of the proposed regulations, the State Water Board may subject such unauthorized diversions to administrative civil liabilities of up to $1,000 per day and $2,500 per acre foot of water unlawfully diverted in a drought year, or refer the diverter to the Attorney General's office for enforcement, which likely would not be the fastest process. The State Water Board may also issue administrative cease and desist orders and request court injunctions to require that diversions stop. Before issuing such an order, the State Water Board must have specific information regarding the unlawful diversion or the potential of such a diversion. The board may not issue an enforceable order requiring those diversions to cease based on lack of water availability, absent information that there is a risk of actual continued diversion.